You are here, tonight, in a place that asks nothing of you. No decisions, no rushing, no proving that you deserve rest. Just a gentle room, a gentle hour, and a story that can carry itself. Imagine that you are standing in a museum after closing, when the last footsteps have faded and the public lights have softened into a hush. Not the dramatic hush of a secret, but the ordinary hush of a building that finally exhales. Somewhere far above, the city still moves. Traffic turns into a distant river. Elevators sleep. A guard's radio becomes a small, patient crackle, then silence again. You are not alone here. A calm presence walks beside you, someone whose job is to care for quiet things. A curator, perhaps, or an archivist wearing simple gloves and an expression that has learned to be tender with time. They do not hurry you. They do not ask you to memorize anything. They only open a door and let you feel how cool the air is on the other side. The corridor is narrow and clean, lit by low, warm lamps. Your steps are slow, almost floating, as if the floor has become softer than it looks. With every breath, the outside world grows further away. Not because it is bad, but because it can wait. For now, you are allowed to be small and unbothered. The curator stops at a heavy cabinet, metal drawers stacked like quiet chapters. They slide one drawer open with a sound like a long, careful sigh. Inside, cushioned in pale foam, lies a fragment of reddish-brown clay. It is not large, not flashy, not grand. And yet it feels heavier than you expect, the way meaning often does. The clay feels cold through the thin gloves, a clean, steady cold like a river stone held in your palm. The surface is rough in a gentle way, textured with tiny wedges pressed by a reed stylus thousands of years ago. If you tilt it slightly, the marks catch the light and let it glide across them, as if the writing is still waking up. A small label sits nearby with a number, just a quiet identifier in a world of careful order. The curator's voice is low, warm and even. They say, almost like a lullaby, that this tablet traveled a long way to reach this drawer. Fired in an ancient kiln, buried in earth, forgotten for long, long generations. Then found again and carried, patiently, cautiously, into this room that feels like a steady heartbeat. And in the middle of all that time, the tablet kept doing the same thing. It stayed still. It held its silence. It waited the way a sealed letter waits, the way a memory waits at the edge of sleep. Can you hear it? Is silence in archives a kind of sound in itself? In this stillness, you might notice your own mind settling the way dust settles in a beam of light. Thoughts drift by, slower now, as if they have agreed to speak in whispers. You don't have to follow them. You can let them pass, like pages turning somewhere far away. Feel the steady weight of your body. Feel the support beneath you. Let the quiet do what it does best, hold you gently. If you listen closely, the quiet here is not empty. It has layers, it has depth, it has a softness that feels almost like fabric. There is the faint breath of climate control, a whispered wind designed to protect paper and clay. There is the gentle click of a drawer settling into place. And beneath it all, there is the shared quiet of countless objects resting, each one a small, sleeping witness. The curator lets you hold the tablet only for a moment. Then, with reverence that is more soothing than solemn, they guide it back into its support. No drama, no flourish, just care. They tell you without piling on dates or names that the marks on this clay belong to one of humanity's oldest habits. The habit of writing things down so they don't vanish. The habit of turning passing moments into something that can outlast the body. A list, a prayer, a contract, A story tonight about the early days of living between two rivers and about the strange tenderness and danger of watching. Before we drift deeper into tonight's gentle journey, remember to subscribe to Ancient Sleep Story. Here, you'll always find peaceful stories that soothe the heart and quiet the mind. Where are you listening from tonight? Leave a comment. Your presence adds warmth to this quiet corner of the night. Now let your shoulders soften, let the muscles around your eyes loosen. If it feels good, let your jaw unclench just a little and take one slow breath in and a slow breath out, as if you are placing the whole day into a box and sliding the lid closed. The curator rests their hand on the drawer's edge. They speak again, and the words feel like lantern light, small, steady, not blinding. They explain that long ago people told stories about beings who were meant to stand in the middle, not the highest powers in the sky, not the ordinary workers in the fields, but the ones between, tasked with guiding, teaching, overseeing, and keeping things in order. In those old stories, the world is young. Cities are still learning their shapes. Waterways are still being carved with patient hands. And in the background, like distant stars, there are the great names, Anu, Enlil, Enki, names that once rose with incense and morning bread. You do not need to remember them. Tonight, they are simply part of the atmosphere, like constellations you don't have to identify to feel their calm. What matters is the feeling behind the myth, a very human feeling, wrapped in divine language. Imagine a long workday that never ends, not for a week, not for a season, but for so long that even time grows tired. In those ancient texts, there are gods who dig canals, who lift baskets of earth, who shape the land so that life can settle into it. Even in a myth, you can recognize the rhythm of labor, steady, repetitive, almost hypnotic. It could be the scoop, the lift, the pour, the rinse of water over mud, the same motion again and again until it becomes a kind of prayer. And then, in the soft way that pressure builds, a complaint gathers, not shouted, not violent, more like dust in the air, a tiredness that becomes a question. How long can anyone carry the same burden? So the highest ones make a practical decision. They create humans to take over the work. Clay and breath, earth and a spark of mind. A solution that sounds simple when you say it softly. But solutions have echoes, and sometimes a solution changes the shape of the problem. Humans work, humans learn, humans multiply, laugh, build, and make noise. Not only sound, but the noise of being alive, the noise of wanting, the noise of doing more than the minimum. And soon the great ones discover that creating workers also creates a new need. A need for teaching, a need for guidance, a need for someone to stand nearby and show the way. So they delegate. They appoint watchers. Not watchers like the ones in modern movies. No dark cloaks, no sudden music. Just overseers, middle voices, patient presences sent to keep the rhythm steady, to remind humans how to irrigate, how to measure, how to build a temple wall straight, how to keep the calendar aligned with the sky. And here, very gently, is the seed of the night's curiosity. What happens to a being who watches long enough? What happens when a watcher begins to care? When teaching turns into closeness? When closeness turns into influence? When the line between guiding and intervening grows soft like ink in water? The curator does not say this like a warning. They say it like a truth that can be held with kindness. A truth that appears in old stories because it also appears in ordinary life. If you have ever been the one in the middle, the person who translates, who mediates, who keeps things running, you may already understand the quiet fatigue of it. responsibility above you, need below you, and your own heart somewhere in between, trying to stay gentle. Here, no one rests alone. Every story from the past is a soft lantern in the dark, gently lighting our way tonight. The curator lifts the foam support slightly, just to show you the underside of the clay. There is a smear of darker earth in one corner, as if the tablet still remembers the ground it slept in. They place it back and close the drawer with a calm, final click. Then they turn to another cabinet, a different drawer, a different label. Their hand pauses as if listening for permission from the quiet itself. You feel it, the small, pleasant pull of curiosity, not sharp, not urgent, just a gentle maybe, a soft twist waiting to unfold like a slow wave, because the story on this clay is not only about gods and ancient choices, it is also about you, about the parts of you that watch your own life, your own thoughts, your own worries, and about what happens when, after a long day of watching, you finally let yourself be cared for instead. The curator slides the second drawer open. Inside, under another layer of pale foam, there is something small and unexpected, a carved figure perhaps, or a sketch on a brittle tag, a hint of fish scales, a suggestion of feathers, a symbol of those beings who lived between worlds. And as you lean closer, breathing slow, safe and steady, the museum corridor begins to blur at the edges, and the damp, starlit marshlands of ancient Mesopotamia begin to appear. Reeds whispering in the night wind, water reflecting the moon like a quiet mirror, and a distant city called Eridu, waiting like a warm light at the edge of the river. We are going there next, not fast, not all at once, just one soft step at a time. The drawer stays open for a moment, like a doorway held for you. The curator does not rush to explain. They simply let you look, and let your mind soften around what it sees. Resting in its pale cradle is a small object, no larger than your palm, carved with a shape that feels half familiar, half dream. A curve that could be a fin or a feather, a pattern that suggests scales or perhaps just the patient geometry of an ancient hand. It does not shout, it does not demand belief. It only offers a mood, the mood of river water under moonlight, and of stories told in low voices so children can fall asleep. The curator closes the drawer again, gently, and the sound is so quiet it feels more like a thought than a noise. Then with a soft gesture, they invite you to follow them out of the vault. The corridor is the same cool corridor, but now it seems to lengthen into another place. The museum walls fade into something older, older than stone, older than brick, older, even, than the habit of calling a place mine. The air becomes damp, the temperature becomes kindly, and when you breathe in, you imagine the scent of wet reeds, river mud, and distant smoke from a small cooking fire. Outside, night has settled over a flat landscape where water and land keep exchanging names. Marshes shimmer, channels braid and unbraid, like hair loosened at bedtime. In the distance, a low city shape rests against the horizon, Eridu, one of the oldest names in the world's long mouth. You approach it, slowly, as if you were walking across a painted scene. The stars above feel closer than they do now because there are fewer lights to compete with them. The sky is a deep, velvet blue with pale, scattered sparks that do not flicker so much as breathe. A thin wind moves through the reeds. It makes a sound like paper being turned, page after page, somewhere in a dark library. And you notice with quiet relief that the world here is built of repeating rhythms, the hush of grass, the faint lap of water, the steady chorus of insects. Repetition tonight is a kind of care. The curator is still with you, though their outline is softer now, as if they belong to both worlds. They speak in a tone that matches the landscape. They tell you that people here lived close to water, and because of that closeness, they learned patience. They learned that channels do not appear in a day. They learned that fields drink slowly. They learned that the river gives and takes, and that wisdom, like irrigation, is something you maintain. Ahead, you see a wall made of bundled reeds. It is not tall, but it is sturdy in a humble way. The reeds are dried to pale gold, tied together with cord. In moonlight, they look almost silver at the edges, as if the night has gently dusted them with frost. The curator places a gloved hand near the reeds, not touching, just hovering, and in their quiet voice, they mention a phrase that has traveled across millennia, a reed wall that hears, a wall that becomes a witness, a wall that receives a whisper and passes it on. If you have ever stayed up late while the house slept, you may understand how walls can feel alive. At night, even ordinary rooms seem to listen, even the quiet feels attentive. In Eridu long ago, people told stories in that same nighttime tone. They spoke of messages that came softly, never as explosions but as guidance you almost miss unless you slow down. Beyond the wall, the city holds a warm glow, not bright, not sharp. Just the dim amber of oil lamps and hearths. You can imagine a pot simmering somewhere, a family gathered close, the low murmur of voices. There is no urgency here. Life is steady, like a slow drum beneath the world. The curator leads you along a narrow path. Your feet do not sink, not tonight. The ground feels firm enough to hold you, but soft enough to forgive you. And as you walk, you begin to notice small details. The glint of water in a shallow canal, the silhouette of a boat drawn up in the reeds, a clay jar resting near a doorway like a patient companion. This is the kind of world where clay is everywhere. Clay in the hands, clay under the nails, clay in the walls, clay in the bowls that carry bread, clay too in the tablets that will one day sleep in museum drawers. In a way, clay is the memory of the river made solid. You reach a quieter space near the edge of the water, and the curator gestures toward the dark surface. The river reflects the stars in broken pieces, each ripple turning a bright point into a small, trembling line. It is beautiful, and it is calming, and it feels like a lesson you do not have to study. They tell you that the people of this land imagined teachers who arrived from the waters. Not conquerors, not loud heroes, teachers. Figures who knew how to measure time, how to read the sky, how to keep records, how to shape a city so it would not collapse back into marsh. In later retellings, these teachers are described as strange and gentle at once, part human, part fish, as if the river itself had stepped onto land and learned to speak. Names are offered in the old lists, but tonight, we do not need lists. Tonight, you can simply picture them as the wise ones, the ones who rise at dawn, walk among people, and then return to the water when the sun is low. The curator invites you to imagine one of them. He emerges from the canal at first light, water sliding from his shoulders. His eyes are calm, as if they have watched many mornings. He carries a simple reed stylus and a small tablet of wet clay. He does not perform. He does not threaten. He sits with the builders and shows them how to mark straight lines. He sits with the farmers and shows them how to count seed. He sits with the young and shows them how to shape a sign, how to press the wedge gently, how to let the hand be steady. If you are listening tonight with a tired mind, let that be enough. Learning can be gentle. Guidance can be gentle. Even change can be gentle if it arrives like dawn. The curator's voice lowers even more, until it feels like it is coming from inside your own chest. They mention the watchers again, the overseers, the middle ones. In this landscape, the idea of watching is not frightening, it is protective. A watcher stands near the canal at night, so the embankment does not break. A watcher listens for the shift in wind that could bring a storm. A watcher keeps the lamp trimmed so the flame stays small and steady. You cannot observe a life closely without feeling something. Even if you try to remain neutral, your heart begins to lean. You begin to want the people you watch over to be safe, to be fed, to be taught, to be spared from unnecessary sorrow. As you walk, you pass a courtyard where a small fire glows. Someone has left a pot near the coals. The lid trembles with quiet bubbling, like a soft pulse. A child's woven mat lies rolled at the edge. The scene is so ordinary it feels sacred. It reminds you that history is not only temples and kings, but evenings like this, warmth held against the night. If tonight's story reminded you of a beautiful memory, feel free to share it below. The curator smiles, not brightly but gently, as if they understand that memories also like to be cared for. Then they guide you toward a larger structure, low and wide, built of mud brick that has the color of sleep. The bricks are smooth from hands passing over them, generation after generation. The doorway is modest, inside it is dim. You step in and the air is cooler. You hear the soft echo of your own breath. And in that echo you begin to feel what the museum vault was always trying to teach you. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is a room where time rests. Along one wall, shelves hold small tablets, some baked, some still drying. The shapes are simple, but the effect is profound. Each tablet is a moment held still. Each one is a voice waiting to become a whisper. The curator selects one tablet, not at random, but with a tenderness that suggests familiarity. They hold it in the lamplight so the marks become tiny shadows. Then they tilt it, slowly, and you see a small motif near the edge, an emblem that resembles a pair of eyes. The curator does not explain too quickly. They let the image settle into you, and in that settling you feel the story turning, just slightly, like a river choosing a new path. Because if the watchers were close enough to see the details, close enough to notice the child's mat, the simmering pot, the trembling lid, then they were close enough to feel affection. And affection, the curator whispers, is where boundaries begin to soften. Outside, the reeds rustle again. Inside, the lamp flame leans and steadies. You feel your own breathing find a slower rhythm, as if the night has placed a hand on your back. Somewhere beyond the city, the canal water keeps moving, patient and dark. Somewhere above, the stars keep their quiet positions. And somewhere between the river and the sky, the watchers remain, standing at the edge of human life, learning what it means to care. And as your eyes grow heavier, the curator reaches toward the tablet once more, as if about to show you a detail that will make the world feel a little wider and a little softer. The lamp inside the mud brick room burns with a steady, humble glow. Its light does not reach far, and that is part of the comfort. It keeps the edges of the space soft. It lets shadows stay gentle. It makes every object feel as if it is resting, even while you look at it. The curator places the tablet back on the shelf, and for a while you both simply listen. The city outside is quiet, but not empty. Somewhere, water moves through a channel. Somewhere, a nightbird calls once, then goes silent again. The reeds outside the doorway brush each other like hands, smoothing a blanket. If you are lying down as you listen, allow your body to sink another small degree into whatever is holding you. Let your shoulders fall away from your ears. Let the space behind your eyes widen. There is nothing you must solve tonight. The story will carry the weight for you. The curator speaks again, and their voice feels like warm air on cool skin. They tell you that the oldest stories often begin with a problem that is not grand at all. A problem that sounds, in its simplest form, like this: too much work for too few hands. Not a villain, not a battle. Just strain, gathering quietly like silt at the bottom of a canal. In the beginning, they say, the land between rivers was beautiful but demanding. Water could nourish a field, but it could also overwhelm it. Mud could become brick, but only after patient shaping. A city could rise, but only if the channels were tended, the banks strengthened, the baskets filled and lifted and emptied again and again until the world took on a steadier form. Imagine the labor the way the old texts invite you to imagine it. Not in sharp scenes, but in rhythm. A line of figures moves along the canal's edge. Their steps are even, their breathing is measured. They scoop mud with wooden tools, lift it into baskets, and carry it to where a bank needs to be built higher. The sound of wet earth is thick and quiet. The sound of water is thin and constant. And above it all, the sky stays patient, as if it understands that building a life takes time. Scoop, lift, step, set down. You can almost feel the texture of the mud as it dries on skin. Cool at first, then tightening into a faint crust. You can hear a reed basket creak, then settle, then creak again, like a slow instrument keeping time. A little water spills, makes a dark stain, and the stain spreads quietly before it stops. In the distance, a dog turns once in the dust and lies down. A lamp in a doorway flickers, then becomes steady. And if your mind tries to hurry ahead, you can let it return to the simplest motion. Inhale, exhale, scoop, lift, step, set down. Even the moon pauses above the canal, listening, approving, and letting your pace become slower too. Scoop, lift, step, set down. There is something strangely soothing in the repetition. It is the same kind of soothing you may feel when you fold laundry in a quiet room or wash dishes while the house sleeps. The mind slows to match the hands. The body finds its own steady metronome. Even worry, if it comes more softly. And yet, the curator says, even a gentle rhythm can become heavy if it never ends. In the old Atrahasis story, there are divine workers, lesser gods, tasked with the practical chores of shaping the earth. They dig and dredge for ages that feel longer than a human lifetime. Their tiredness grows the way a small ache grows, not suddenly but steadily, until it becomes impossible to ignore. The curator does not describe anger. They do not raise their voice. They simply let you understand the feeling exhaustion, the kind that makes the world look blurred at the edges, the kind that turns even a sunrise into something you cannot enjoy because you are already thinking about the next task. So in the story, the highest powers choose an answer that sounds like administration, not drama. They decide to delegate. They decide to create beings who can take on the work so the divine workers can finally rest. And here, the curator's hand lifts, as if shaping the air into a small sculpture. They describe a bowl of clay, river clay, thick and dark, kneaded until it holds together. They describe a quiet ritual, no spectacle, no thunder, only careful hands and deliberate intention. Then a breath is given, a portion of mind, a spark of capacity, and humans arrive not as a punishment but as a solution. When you hear it this way, it feels strangely tender. Humans are born, in myth, as helpers, as companions to the land, as the ones who will learn the rhythm of work and the rhythm of water and carry it forward. Outside the room, the canal continues its low song. You might notice how your own breathing has begun to mirror it, in and out, slow and steady. The curator says that once humans appear, the world changes not with a bang, but with a gradual thickening of sound. More footsteps, more voices, more fires lit at dusk, more children laughing in courtyards, more life multiplying into warmth. And then, inevitably, there is a new need. Humans must be taught not only how to dig, but how to measure, not only how to build, but how to keep peace. Not only how to survive, but how to belong to something larger than themselves. So the great ones appoint those who stand in the middle, watchers, overseers, guides who are close enough to see the small details and distant enough to represent a higher order. They are sent with instructions that sound simple: observe, advise, maintain balance. The curator lowers their voice further. But, they whisper, you cannot observe for long without your heart beginning to lean. They invite you to picture a watcher walking the streets of Eridu at night. The lamplight pools around doorways. The air smells of bread and damp earth. A family settles onto mats. A child's head rests on a folded cloth. Someone hums under their breath, not a song for performance, but a small sound to keep fear away. The watcher stands at the edge of this tenderness. They were not sent to be family, they were sent to be function. And yet they see the human world up close. They see how a mother uses her own body to block the draft. They see how a tired worker rubs mud from their hands and still smiles when a child runs to them. Night after night, the watcher learns the human pace, and little by little, something shifts. Guidance becomes concern. Concern becomes attachment. Attachment becomes intervention. It does not happen like a fall. It happens like water seeping into soil, quiet, inevitable, almost natural. The curator returns to the shelf and chooses another tablet. This one is smaller, thinner, as if it was meant to be carried. They hold it so the light grazes the cuneiform marks. The writing is not a list of names. It is not a dramatic proclamation. It is a record, calm and ordinary, of decisions. You cannot read it, and you do not need to. The curator traces one sign with a gloved fingertip, hovering above the clay without touching. The sign resembles an eye again, but this time paired with a wedge mark that suggests direction: toward, near, beside, as if, the curator murmurs. The text is saying they were not only watching from above, they were near. A soft discovery, a boundary blurred, written not as scandal but as fact, and in your own life, perhaps you recognize that blur. How being close to someone changes you. How caring can make you act. How responsibility, when it lives in the middle, can become heavy in a very particular way. If tonight you have been carrying something that isn't fully yours, someone else's expectations, someone else's worry, someone else's unfinished tasks, let this story be kind to you. It does not accuse, it only understands. Here, no one rests alone. Every story from the past is a soft lantern in the dark, gently lighting our way tonight. The curator sets the tablet down and looks toward the reed wall outside. The night wind moves through it again, and for a moment, it truly does feel like the wall is whispering. Not words you must decipher, just reassurance. The curator tells you that later versions of the myth speak of a time when the world became too loud, too crowded, too restless, when the balance of the system felt slightly off. And the response in the stories is not described tonight as punishment or rage. It is described as a reset that sounds like weather. Heavy rain, then quiet. A long wash of water, then stillness again. A world trying to become calm. A world trying to sleep. The curator pauses, and in the pause you feel your own mind drifting nearer to that calm. The lamp flame leans, then steadies. The canal outside keeps moving, patient and dark. The stars above remain, as if nothing has ever been urgent. The curator reaches for one last object, a small seal stone. Cool and smooth, they press it gently into a soft piece of clay and lift it away. The impression is delicate, an emblem of authority, yes, but also an emblem of care. A mark left so things can be kept in order without force. They turn the clay toward you. The imprint looks like two figures facing each other, one taller, one smaller. Between them, a line like a river. Between, the curator whispers, always between. And as your eyelids grow heavier, you sense that the next part of the story will step closer to that between, to the moment when watching becomes more than watching, and the middle role begins to change the entire shape of the night. The seal stone rests in the curator's gloved palm, cool as moonlit river rock. For a moment, they do not move. They let the little imprint dry, and they let you feel the quiet meaning of it. Two figures, a line between them, and the steady suggestion that order is often made from simple shapes, repeated gently. Outside the mud brick room, Eridu keeps breathing. Reeds comb the night air. A canal carries dark water with a sound like slow silk. Somewhere farther off, a dog sighs and settles again. Nothing here is urgent. Everything is done in the pace of preservation. If your thoughts are still busy, imagine setting them down the way the curator sets down the tablet, carefully, without judgment. One by one, place them on a shelf. Let them rest, then take a slow breath in and a slow breath out, as if you were smoothing the surface of water with your exhale. The curator speaks. Their words arrive softly, like footsteps on sand. In the oldest texts, they say, the trouble rarely begins as cruelty. It begins as convenience. They explain that when humans were created to take on labor, the higher powers did what many systems do. They stepped back, they arranged layers, they built distance between decision and daily life. It was, in a way, an ancient form of management, fewer direct interventions, more delegated oversight, more trust placed in those who stood in the middle. At first, it worked beautifully. Fields were watered, bricks were shaped, grain was stored. The city grew into its own rhythm, and that rhythm was almost musical, steady as a drum that never hurries. The watchers walked the banks at dawn, checking the embankments for cracks. They walked at dusk, counting lamps and listening for quarrels that could be soothed before they became sharp. They stood near scribes, guiding the slow press of the reed stylus into clay. They stood near builders, ensuring the lines of a wall remained straight. Always nearby, always between, and because they were nearby, they began to notice small things. A child's scraped knee, rinsed carefully at the canal. A tired laugh shared over a bowl of lentils. The way a woman tied a cord around a jar lid so it would not spill while she walked. The way an old man leaned his forehead against a cool wall at noon and closed his eyes, just for a moment, as if borrowing sleep. These are not dramatic details, but they are the details that soften a heart. "Can you hear it?" the curator asks, almost playfully, almost tenderly. Is silence in archives a kind of sound in itself? You realize the question belongs to both worlds at once. In the museum vault, silence holds artifacts. In Eridu, silence holds lives. In both places, quiet is not emptiness. Quiet is a kind of shelter. The curator describes in the simplest terms how watching can turn into caring, not because of rebellion, not because of hatred, but because closeness changes you. The more you witness someone's day, the harder it is to remain only an observer. A watcher begins to want the people they oversee to thrive, not only to function. A boundary starts to blur. And blurred boundaries, the curator says, are rarely a single leap. They are a collection of small steps, each one understandable. A watcher offers advice beyond the instruction. A watcher stays a little longer by a doorway. A watcher takes a child's hand and shows them the correct angle of the stylus. A watcher listens to a complaint and does not report it upward because it seems too human, too ordinary, too full of tiredness. Soon, there is a second rhythm beneath the rhythm of work, the rhythm of attachment. The curator walks you out of the mud brick room into the open night. The moon has climbed higher. The water reflects it in fragments. The reeds, lit from one side, look like thin silver threads. You follow the narrow path along the canal, and the city's lights become softer behind you. Ahead, the land opens into marsh. Frogs make slow, spaced calls as if they are speaking in very patient sentences. The air smells of damp soil and faint smoke. Your body feels heavier in the best way, as if gravity has become kinder. The curator points toward the horizon where low clouds gather. In this story world, even weather feels like a character that prefers whispering to shouting. When the system strains, they say, it often strains quietly first. Humans multiply. Their voices fill the night. Their fires burn longer. Their lives become busy and bright. The higher powers, listening from far away, begin to feel that the world is too loud. The watchers, living close, begin to feel that the world is simply alive. Do you hear the difference? One perspective hears noise, another hears warmth. And in that difference, tension grows, not a fight but a mismatch, a gentle misalignment, like a door that no longer closes perfectly. The curator kneels by the canal and lets their fingers hover above the water. Imagine, they say, being responsible for harmony but living among heartbeats. The watchers are tasked with order, yet they have come to love the irregular beauty of human life. The higher powers value stability, yet they are distant enough to mistake life for disorder. The middle role becomes heavy, and the watchers carry it the way you might carry a full basket, carefully, quietly, hoping nothing spills. The clouds thicken. A breeze shifts. The reeds lean as one, then return. And the first drops of rain arrive, soft, spaced, almost polite. Rain on reeds makes a sound that is gentle and constant, like fingertips tapping a drum far away. Rain on mud makes a scent that feels like memory. Rain on water turns the canal surface into 1,000 small circles, each one expanding and dissolving. The curator's voice lowers until it is nearly part of the rain. In some versions, they say, the world is washed, not as punishment, not as terror, but as reset, like rinsing dust from a cloth. The old stories speak of flood, yes, but tonight the flood is not a scene. It is a feeling, heavy rain, rising water, then the relief of stillness after. The curator watches the rain with you. They do not dramatize. They let it be what rain always is, a slow hand smoothing the landscape. As the rain steadies, you begin to notice how safe it feels to listen to it. Your breathing matches its pace. Your thoughts, if they come softer. If you have ever found comfort in the sound of a shower late at night, you know this kind of comfort. Steady, predictable, forgiving. The curator suggests you listen to the rain the way you might listen to a heartbeat. Not to analyze it, only to let it steady you. Drop after drop, the sound repeats, and repetition becomes a gentle permission slip. Your eyelids may feel warmer now, your hands may feel heavier. If you are holding tension in your neck, imagine the rain loosening it, the way water loosens dust from a stone. And if your mind returns to a worry, let it float like a small leaf on the canal, present but carried. Perhaps you have been a watcher too, watching your own life, keeping everything from spilling. Tonight you can soften your grip. No need to push it away, just watch it drift, then drift yourself gently. The curator says that in the tale, after the washing, boundaries return. The watchers step back. The higher powers reassert distance. Humans rebuild their rhythms. The canal is dredged again. Bricks are laid again. A city rises again, not with a triumphant shout, but with quiet persistence. And yet, something has changed. The watchers have learned what it means to care. Humans have learned what it means to be seen. The middle role remains a tender, difficult place because it holds both the rules and the hearts. If tonight you have been living in the middle, between work and family, between responsibility and rest, between what others need and what you quietly need, let this story soften around you. It does not ask you to fix anything in the dark. It only asks you to breathe and to feel that you are allowed to set the basket down. Here, no one rests alone. Every story from the past is a soft lantern in the dark, gently lighting our way tonight. The rain begins to thin. Drops become spaced again. The canal resumes its smoother surface, still rippling, but calmer. A small boat tied to a reed stake knocks once against its tether and then becomes still. The curator turns back toward Eridu and you follow. The city's lamps appear again as warm dots, like embers held carefully. In a doorway, someone has hung a woven mat to block the draft. In another, a baby's soft breathing can almost be imagined. Then, in the distance, you see a structure that was not obvious before, a low shrine, and behind it, a reed wall that seems to shimmer even without wind. The curator pauses. There is a line, they whisper, in one of the tablets, a line that sounds like a wall speaking. It is quiet, but it changes the shape of the story. They guide you closer. The reed wall stands in the rain-damp night, smelling of water and straw. And as you near it, you feel the smallest spark of curiosity again, gentle, warm, and safe. If a wall can listen, the curator murmurs, what else has been listening to you? They lift their lantern. The light grazes the reeds. And in that soft glow, you notice a mark, carved, pressed, or perhaps simply worn into place, like a sign meant for watchers, for those who stand between. You lean in, your eyes heavy, your breath slow, your mind calm enough to receive a whisper. The reed wall stands close enough for you to see how each stalk has been bundled, some pale as straw, some darker where river water once kissed them. In the lantern's glow, the wall is not a barrier. It is a boundary that feels gentle, like the edge of a blanket tucked around a sleeping body. The curator lifts the light a little higher, and the reeds make tiny shadows on themselves. The shadows sway, then settle. You notice how the wall seems to breathe with the night, expanding and softening as the wind passes through. You do not have to picture every detail perfectly. A hint is enough. Your mind can hold a suggestion the way it holds a dream, loosely, kindly, without effort. The curator's voice drops to a whisper, not because anything is dangerous, but because whispers belong here. In one of the oldest flood stories, they say, a god does not speak directly to a human. He speaks to a wall. It sounds strange in a peaceful way, like hearing that a tree can remember, or that a river can give advice. But the more you imagine it, the more it makes sense. A wall is always present. A wall hears everything. A wall does not argue. It simply holds the room. You step closer, the reeds are smooth where many hands have brushed them. Their surfaces are faintly ridged like the lines on a palm. In that texture, you can almost feel the long patience of daily life. Baskets woven, roofs patched, doors repaired, children lifted and carried. This wall is made of ordinary materials, and that is what makes it holy. The curator tells you the god's name in the simplest way, as if offering a single star to look at. Enki, they say, and then they let the name drift away like incense. You do not have to remember it. Tonight it is only a soft sound that matches the water. In the tale, Enki is the one who loves the deep places, fresh water under the earth, springs hidden beneath clay, the quiet intelligence of channels and currents. He is also the one who cares for humans in a manner that is practical, not sentimental. He does not rescue with fireworks, he rescues with instructions that can be followed slowly. The curator stands beside you, and together you face the wall. Behind it is a small house, modest and warm. Inside, someone sleeps. You can imagine the steady rise and fall of a chest, the relaxed hand curled near the face, the quiet trust of a body that believes the night will pass safely. A wind moves through the reeds again, and you hear a soft shiver. It is the kind of sound that invites you to lower your shoulders, to soften your jaw, to let your breath become long. The curator says, "The wall hears this. Reed wall, listen." Just that. A call, gentle and repetitive, like a parent calling a child's name at bedtime, not to wake them fully, but to guide them into a safer position under the covers. Then the whisper continues, and it is not a threat, it is a set of steps. Dismantle the house, the wall is told to hear, and build a boat. But even that tonight is not dramatic. The curator invites you to feel the meaning beneath the words. Prepare a shelter that can float. Build something that holds you when the ground changes. Create an enclosure that can keep you steady, even if water rises. In your own life, perhaps you have done this many times. You have built small boats without calling them boats. You have made routines that steady you. You have found a quiet corner to drink tea. You have learned how to say no. You have kept one gentle object on your desk, one photograph, one stone, one note, so your mind can return to it when the day becomes loud. The curator's eyes stay on the wall. The story is old, they say, but the feeling is familiar. When the world becomes too much, the kindest wisdom is often simple. Make a place to rest. The rain has mostly ended now. Only a few drops slip from the reed tips, falling with soft, spaced taps. Somewhere in the marsh, a frog answers with a slow call, then stops as if it has said what it needed to say. The curator continues the whisper, but in a softened way, without harsh images. They speak of gathering what matters, seeds, tools, small animals, food for a journey, not as a panic, but as an act of care, like packing a bag for someone you love before a long train ride, like preparing a warm room before a guest arrives. They describe the boat not as a weapon against disaster, but as a cradle. A large, simple cradle made of wood and reed and resin sealed so it can ride the water. A moving room, a floating house, a place where breath can remain steady even if the world outside shifts. And then the curator pauses, and in that pause you notice something tender. The god speaks to a wall because he cannot break the rules openly. He cannot shout over the system. He can only leave a thread of guidance in the quietest place possible, a boundary held with gentleness, a choice made in the middle, a watcher's kind of decision. If you have ever tried to help someone without making noise, quietly paying attention, quietly leaving a note, quietly doing one small task so their burden feels lighter, then you know what it means to speak through a wall. You know what it means to offer care in a way that does not demand praise. Here, no one rests alone. Every story from the past is a soft lantern in the dark, gently lighting our way tonight. The curator invites you to listen again. Can you hear it? Not a voice exactly, but the feeling of a message being passed, a whisper that travels through reeds, into air, into the inner ear, and finally into the mind like warm water. They tell you the human's name as the story holds it, Atrahasis, the exceedingly wise. But the curator quickly softens the name into meaning, a person who knows how to listen. A person who hears guidance without needing to argue with it. A person who acts without turning the world into a spectacle. Atrahasis, in this gentle telling, does not panic. He wakes slowly. He sits up. He listens to the rain. He feels the weight of his own body, the firmness of the floor beneath him, the cool air at the doorway. He hears the reed walls shiver and understands it as instruction, not as terror. He begins then to do what humans do best when they are guided by quiet wisdom. He starts one task at a time. First, he gathers materials, then he measures, then he weaves, then he seals. Each step is repetitive, and repetition becomes soothing. The work itself becomes a lullaby. Hands moving steadily. Breath moving steadily. A mind that does not race ahead because the next step is already enough. The curator walks with you along the canal again. The path glistens with moisture, and the moonlight makes it look like a ribbon laid gently across the earth. In the city behind you, lamps are dimmer now, as if even fire has grown sleepy. As you walk, the curator offers a reflection that feels like a soft hand on your shoulder. You cannot watch without caring, they say. And you cannot care without needing boundaries. The Watchers learned this in the myths. They stood near humans long enough to love them, but love without boundaries becomes exhaustion. Guidance without limits becomes control. Responsibility without rest becomes sorrow. If tonight you have been caring too much, watching too much, holding too much, let this be your permission. You may set a boundary that is kind. You may speak through a wall if you need to. You may offer your help without losing yourself inside it. The curator stops where the canal widens into a darker pool. The water is still enough to hold the moon cleanly. The reflection looks like a coin laid on black velvet. It is so quiet that your thoughts begin to thin out, like mist dissolving. Look, the curator whispers. A boat is not only for storms, a boat is also for passage, for crossing from noise to quiet. And very gently the scene begins to shift again. The reeds, the moon, the canal, they remain, but they soften at the edges, as if someone is dimming a lantern. The curator's outline becomes clearer in another way, as if you are returning to the museum corridor without ever standing up. You are back in the cool vault. The drawer is open. The clay tablet rests in pale foam. The curator holds a small card with a translation written in neat lines. Their voice is the same soft voice, but now it echoes faintly against modern walls. They read one line aloud, slowly, as if the words themselves are sleepy. A message addressed to a reed wall, an instruction given in whispers, a kindness hidden inside a rule-bound world. For a moment you feel two times overlapping like transparent watercolors. Eridu and the museum, rain and climate control, reed and metal drawer, the same story resting in both places. The curator looks up and smiles, barely. Isn't it beautiful, they say, that the most important message was not shouted, it was whispered, so the world could stay calm. Your breathing slows. Your eyelids grow heavier. The vault feels like a safe box for the mind. The tablet feels like a small, warm stone of meaning placed gently in your palm. And as the curator begins to close the drawer, slowly, carefully, you sense that the next part of the journey will move deeper into this overlap of past and present, into the idea that time itself is a kind of boat, carrying you toward rest. The drawer begins to slide inward, slowly, as if the museum itself is trying not to wake what has been sleeping. The curator's hands are steady. Their gloves make a faint papery sound against the foam, and then the tablet is tucked back into darkness, safe, supported, unbothered. The metal drawer closes with a soft, certain click. Let that click be permission to rest. It is such a small sound, and yet it feels like punctuation, a quiet period at the end of a long sentence. Your body understands it the way it understands the final settling of a pillow. Something inside you loosens. In the vault, the air is cool and consistent, as if time has been trained to breathe evenly here. The curator turns the small translation card in their hand. The paper is thick, the ink is calm, and when they speak again, they do so with the same warm steadiness as if their voice has learned to match the temperature of the room. They tell you that many of these tablets come from places with names that once belonged to rivers. Sipar, Nippur, Eridu. Names that feel like soft stones in the mouth. You don't have to hold them tightly. You can let them roll gently across your awareness and then settle wherever they like. Sipar, the curator says, was a city of sun and scribes, a place where the light could be sharp at midday and where people learned to store brightness inside clay so that words could last longer than breath. In the museum's quiet, it is easy to imagine Sipar as a mirage, but the curator helps it become real by describing only what is needed: a riverbank, a courtyard, a room with low benches, and a tray of damp clay waiting to be shaped. It is early morning in Sipar. The air is cooler than it will be later. The river smells faintly of reeds and wet silt. A thin line of smoke rises from a cooking fire. Someone sweeps a courtyard with a bundled brush, the bristles whispering over packed earth. In a small scribal room, students sit with straight backs and sleepy eyes. Their hair is tied back. Their hands are washed. A teacher sets out lump after lump of clay, kneaded until it is smooth, then pressed into small tablets that fit the palm. The clay is neither too wet nor too dry. It has the perfect patience of mud that is willing to become memory. A reed stylus rests nearby, cut at an angle so it can press wedges cleanly. When the teacher demonstrates, the movement is gentle and precise. Press. Lift. Turn. Press again. The marks appear like tiny bird tracks across a beach. If you listen closely, you can almost hear it. Not the loud sound of writing, but the quiet rhythm of it. A soft tap, a small pause, another tap, like rain in a careful mood. The curator's voice returns, and you realize you are still standing in the museum vault. The vault's hum becomes Sipar's morning wind. The museum's low lights become lamplight in a mud brick room, and your breathing, slow and steady, holds both scenes without effort. Can you hear it? The curator asks again. Is silence in archives a kind of sound in itself? You might answer with your body rather than your mind, because your body is hearing something: steadiness, predictability. The curator tells you that tablets like the one you saw were sometimes fired, sometimes simply dried. Fired tablets became hard as stone. Dried tablets could be softer, more fragile, meant for short-term records, school exercises, temporary notes. Not every tablet was destined for eternity. Many were meant to be used, then recycled back into wet clay, the way thoughts are meant to be used, then released. That idea is soothing. Not everything must be kept forever. Not every worry must be archived. In Sipar, the teacher walks among the students. A student presses a wedge too deep and winces, as if the clay can judge them. The teacher does not scold. The teacher simply smooths the surface with a damp fingertip and says quietly, "Again." Again. The word is kind. The word is a door that stays open. The word feels like something you may need tonight if you have been hard on yourself. Again does not mean failure. Again means you are allowed to try at the pace of learning. The curator steps closer to another cabinet and opens a different drawer. Inside is another tablet, smaller, more worn, its edges softened by time. The curator lifts it carefully and angles it under the light. For a moment, the cuneiform wedges look like a small field of shadows. Then the curator points, not to the writing, but to a faint oval near the edge. "A fingerprint," they whisper. It is barely visible, but once you see it, you cannot unsee it. A soft impression left by a human thumb, pressed into clay before it dried. Not a royal seal, not an official mark, just the quiet proof that someone once held this tablet while their mind was elsewhere, perhaps thinking about lunch, or the heat, or the sound of the river, or the weight of their own tiredness. A fingerprint is such a tender thing to find in ancient clay. It is not knowledge that makes you sit upright. It is knowledge that makes you soften. The curator lets you look for a long time. No rush, no quiz, just the gentle overlap of your life and a life that touched clay thousands of years ago. In Sipar, the same thumb presses a tablet steady while the reed stylus makes its careful marks. The student's breathing is slow, the teacher's breathing is slower. Outside, the river keeps moving. Somewhere, a watcher stands in shade observing the school, not as a spy, but as a guardian of rhythm. The curator speaks of the watchers in a way that feels almost modern. They call them overseers. They call them intermediaries. They explain that in many myths, the ones in the middle are created for convenience, to reduce the burden on the ones above, to organize the work of the ones below. It sounds like a system. And systems, the curator says, are rarely broken by one dramatic moment. They are shifted by small changes, a boundary softened, a rule bent, a kindness extended, a responsibility accepted quietly without complaint. In Sipar, the watcher lingers near the doorway. They hear the students reciting signs under their breath. They see the teacher correct a hand position. They notice the student who is too hungry to focus. The watcher is meant to report, not to feed. But closeness creates a question. If you can help, should you? The watcher steps forward and leaves a small bundle, dates perhaps, or a piece of bread, near the threshold. They do not announce it. They do not claim credit. They simply place it there and step back again. Watching becomes caring. Caring becomes intervention. Intervention becomes a new kind of weight. The curator's voice remains steady even as the story deepens. No sharp turns, no sudden storms. Only the slow, truthful feeling of a line being crossed by inches. If you have ever been the one who keeps things running, at work, at home, in a family, then you know those inches. You know how small favors become habits, how habits become expectations, how expectations become exhaustion. And still, the curator says caring is not wrong. Caring is human. The only gentleness needed is awareness, the ability to notice when your hands are holding too much. Here, no one rests alone. Every story from the past is a soft lantern in the dark, gently lighting our way tonight. The curator returns the tablet to its foam cradle. The fingerprint disappears into shadow again, but it leaves warmth in you, as if someone long ago placed a hand briefly on your shoulder. They close the drawer. Another soft click, another quiet period. Then, with a small smile, the curator says that some tablets were found in the ruins of scribal schools, still stacked as if class had ended and everyone had simply gone home. The thought is strangely tender. A lesson paused mid-sentence, a room left behind, silence arriving. like dusk. They guide you back down the corridor. The museum feels larger now, not because it is loud, but because it contains so many sleeping rooms. You pass doors with small signs, shelves behind walls, objects held in darkness like seeds waiting for spring. As you walk, the curator offers a gentle reflection. Time is not only a line, time is also a container. It holds fingerprints, mistakes, small kindnesses left at thresholds, and quiet decisions made by people in the middle. Tonight, you do not need to carry time. You only need to be carried by it. At the end of the corridor, the curator stops at one more door. Behind it, they say, is a study room where conservators listen to clay in a different way. Through microscopes, through careful light, through patience. They can see the depth of a wedge, the grain of a fingerprint, the faint scratches where a stylus hesitated. Sometimes, the curator whispers, the smallest hesitation tells the biggest story. They place a key in the lock. The key turns with a soft, steady sound. And as the door opens, a warmer light spills out, golden, quiet, like dawn. Inside, on a table, lies a tablet with a long crack across its surface. The crack has been repaired, lovingly, so the two sides meet again. The writing continues across the seam, unbroken in meaning. A mended sentence, a repaired memory. A gentle reminder that even when something splits, it can still be held. The curator looks at you as if you already know what comes next. We will follow this repaired seam back through time, not to a catastrophe, but to a moment of tenderness, someone choosing to mend rather than discard, to hold rather than abandon. And you listening tonight will be invited to do the same. The door swings inward on quiet hinges, and the warmer light spreads across the table like honey poured slowly. It isn't bright enough to wake you. It's the kind of light that makes a room feel safe, golden, steady, and unhurried, as if it has been waiting for you all along. The curator steps aside so you can enter first. The air here is slightly different from the vault, still controlled, still calm, but softer, touched with the faint scent of paper, cotton, and something clean like rain on stone. A desk lamp leans over the workspace, and beneath it lies the tablet with its long repaired seam. At first, you notice only the crack, thin, pale, like a river traced on a map. Then you notice what matters more, the care. The edges meet again. The clay has been supported, coaxed back into wholeness. And the writing, those tiny wedges pressed by a hand long gone, continues across the seam as if meaning can travel over any distance, even a break. The curator does not touch the tablet. They only gesture toward it, a small invitation. This, they whisper, is what time does. It breaks, and then sometimes it is held. If you are listening tonight with a mind that has felt a little fractured by deadlines, by worry, by the endless small demands of modern life, let yourself stay with this image. A mended sentence, a repaired memory, a quiet proof that damage is not the end of a story. Across the room, a conservator works at another table. Their movements are slow, almost ceremonial, They wear gloves like the curator's, but thinner, made for delicate precision. Under a magnifying lamp, they examine a fragment no larger than a fingernail. They do not rush. They do not force the piece into place. They simply look, breathe, and wait for the right moment, as if the object itself will tell them where it wants to rest. Can you hear it? Is silence in archives a kind of sound in itself? Here, silence has texture, it has patience, it has the faint rhythm of careful work, the soft slide of a tool across a mat, the gentle tap of a brush, the tiny click of a lens adjustment. It feels like the world has agreed to speak softly so that something fragile can remain intact. The curator tells you that many ancient tablets were broken long before they were found. A roof collapsed, a wall shifted, a flood of earth, not water but time itself, pressed down and cracked what was once whole. And still the words endured, waiting in pieces, waiting for someone to listen. They point to the repaired seam again. This tablet, they say, was not only repaired with materials, it was repaired with attention, with the decision to believe that what's broken is still worth holding. In your mind, the scene begins to overlap again. The museum table becomes a low bench in an ancient room. The lamp becomes a small oil flame. The seam in the clay becomes a line of dried mud near the riverbank, repaired by hands, smoothing it back into place before water can escape. You are in Sippar again, but it could also be Eridu, or any city where people lived close to clay and learned the art of maintaining what holds them. A canal bank has cracked under the heat. The fissure is small, but it matters. If it widens, water will leak. If water leaks, fields will thirst, so a worker kneels, presses fresh mud into the line and smooths it with the flat of a palm. The crack disappears. The bank holds, life continues. Maintenance is not dramatic, it is steady. It is love expressed as repetition. The curator says that the myths about watchers and overseers can be read the same way, not as a tale of sudden betrayal, but as the story of a system that developed hairline cracks, small misalignments that grew when no one paused to mend them with awareness. A watcher stands between the high decisions and the human days. They notice where the canal wall is thinning. They notice where a family is tired. They notice where a rule is too harsh for the reality on the ground. And because they are near, they want to help. At first, they mend quietly. They offer guidance. They soften an instruction. They solve a small problem without sending it upward. In the short term, it feels merciful. In the long term, it shifts the boundary. The system remains standing, but the seam begins to show. The curator speaks this without judgment. Their tone is gentle, as if they are describing weather patterns. You cannot observe without caring, they say, and you cannot care without choosing where your hands will stop. If you have ever been the one who fixes things, who notices the crack before anyone else, who fills the gap before it widens, you understand how tempting it is to keep smoothing, keep patching, keep holding. You understand how easy it is to become the seam itself, the place where everything meets and where all the pressure gathers. Tonight, the museum asks you a kinder question. What if you didn't have to be the seam? What if you could be the one who rests while the world stays held by something larger than your effort? The conservator across the room pauses and lifts their head slightly as if listening. Perhaps they are listening to the object. Perhaps they are listening to their own breath. Perhaps they are listening to the silence, letting it steady their hands. The curator invites you to look closer at the repaired tablet. In the lamplight, you can see tiny differences in tone where the repair material meets the ancient clay, barely noticeable but present. The repair is not meant to erase history. It is meant to support it. The seam is visible because the truth is visible. This object survived by being held, not by pretending it never broke. A gentle thought settles into you. Healing does not always mean returning to how things were. Sometimes healing means becoming whole in a new way, with the seam honored, not hidden. The curator tells you that scholars once argued about whether a repaired tablet counts as authentic. The conservators answered with quiet certainty. Authenticity is not fragility. Authenticity is continuity. The story is still here. The fingerprint is still here. The meaning still crosses the line. As they speak, Your mind drifts to your own lines, the places where your life changed, where a relationship ended, where a job shifted, where a loved one was lost, where an old version of you cracked and had to be mended. Those seams may still be visible, and perhaps, like the tablet, you are not less real because of them. Perhaps you are more. Before you leave the warm study room, the curator asks you to notice one more thing: the way the lamp makes the clay look alive. In the brighter places, the surface is matte, like dried riverbank. In the darker places, it turns velvety, like skin. The wedges of cuneiform catch tiny shadows, and the shadows make the writing feel three-dimensional, as if the words are still lifting themselves. The curator invites you to imagine the person who wrote them. No crown, no anthem, just a working hand. Perhaps they were tired. Perhaps they were calm. Perhaps they were thinking about supper, or the breeze, or the sound of reeds. They pressed, lifted, pressed again, and in that simple rhythm they left behind more than information. They left behind pace. If you'd like, take one slow breath in and one slow breath out, and let your mind follow that rhythm. Press, lift, inhale, exhale. Nothing to achieve. Just a gentle repetition that keeps you steady. On a nearby shelf, the curator shows you a shallow tray of practice fragments, small clay squares used by students. Many are imperfect. Some signs are crooked, some wedges are too deep. And yet the tray looks beautiful because it is full of attempts. The curator says that in ancient schools, a student could smooth the clay and try again. The lesson was not be perfect. The lesson was continue. That word, continue, feels like it belongs to tonight. Not as pressure, but as kindness. Continue means the story goes on. Continue means you can begin again tomorrow. Continue means rest is allowed in the middle of learning. The curator closes the tray, and the room becomes quiet again, held by gentle, warm light. Outside the museum, the city is still moving, but it is far away now. Here, the night is small and safe. The curator's voice becomes softer, slower, like a tide going out. They tell you one more quiet fact. Sometimes the most fragile tablets were preserved by accident. A fire baked them, a collapse sealed them, a forgotten room became a time capsule. It is not only intention that saves things, it is also circumstance, and in that there is a kind of mercy. Not everything depends on your effort. Not everything depends on your vigilance. Here, no one rests alone. Every story from the past is a soft lantern in the dark, gently lighting our way tonight. The curator places the translation card back into its folder. The folder closes with a hush. The repaired tablet remains on the table, steady and unafraid of its seam. The conservator returns to their work, brush moving in slow arcs like someone smoothing a blanket. And then the curator turns to you, and their eyes carry a kind, practical warmth. In the next drawer, they say, there is a tablet that was never meant to last, a student's practice piece, a small, temporary record, and yet it did last, and it tells us something tender about how humans learned to speak to time. They lead you back toward the vault, your steps slow and quiet. The corridor feels even cooler now, like a calm stream. The lights are dim, the drawers are sleeping, and somewhere inside you, a seam that was tight begins to relax. Back in the vault, the cooler air meets you like a clean sheet. The corridor lights are low, and the museum feels less like a building and more like a careful breath, steady, measured, repeating. The curator walks beside you with the same unhurried pace, as if the hallway itself has trained their footsteps to be gentle. A cabinet waits at the end of the aisle. The curator chooses a drawer not from habit, but from quiet intention, and slides it open with a soft, metallic sigh. Inside, there is no grand tablet, no ceremonial seal. There are only small pieces, practice squares, thin and plain, each one shaped to fit into a student's palm. The curator lifts one with 2 fingers, as if lifting a dried leaf from still water. The clay is lighter than the earlier tablets, and its surface is imperfect in a friendly way. One corner is slightly uneven. The edges are rounded, not from artistry, but from handling, thumbs and palms smoothing it over and over as the student tried again. In the lamplight, the wedges look clumsy at first. Some are too shallow, some too deep. A few signs seem to lean as if they are sleepy, and yet the whole piece carries a tenderness that polished artifacts sometimes hide, the tenderness of learning. This, the curator whispers, was never meant to last. They let that sentence hang in the air, and it feels strangely comforting. In ancient schools, practice tablets were often temporary. A student pressed signs, then smoothed the surface with a damp hand, returning the clay to blankness, returning the moment to silence. The lesson was not to make an eternal record. The lesson was to teach the hand to steady and the mind to slow down enough to form meaning. The curator turns the practice tablet slightly. You notice a faint streak where the clay was once smoothed, then pressed again. A paler band like a shoreline. It looks like the tablet holds 2 mornings at once, one attempt erased, another attempt layered gently over it. Your own mind might recognize this layering. How many thoughts have you written and rewritten inside yourself today? How many worries have you pressed into the soft clay of attention, then tried to smooth away, then pressed again? If you've been repeating the same concern, let this little practice tablet offer you something kind. Repetition does not always mean you're stuck. Sometimes repetition is simply the hand learning its own steadiness. Can you hear it? Is silence in archives a kind of sound in itself? Here, in the vault, silence is not only quiet, it is permission. It says, you may be unfinished, you may be imperfect, you may be temporary, and still you belong. The curator brings the tablet closer to the light. Along one edge, the wedges form a simple training line, common signs repeated like scales in a music lesson. Press, lift, press, lift. The pattern has a rhythm that almost matches breathing. Then, near the bottom, there is something else. Not a formal sign, not a proper exercise, a small, almost hidden mark, 2 tiny wedges that resemble an eye, and beneath it a short line that could be read as near or beside. The mark is not crisp, it's the kind of mark made when a student's attention drifts towards something they care about. The curator doesn't announce it as a discovery. They simply smile, barely, and tilt the tablet so you can see it more clearly. A little private note, they murmur, or a doodle that became a thought. You imagine the student in Sipar, sitting on a low bench, shoulders tired from holding posture, fingers damp with clay. The teacher's voice is steady in the background, calling out signs like gentle drum beats. Outside, the river glints. Inside, the student presses the practice line, sign after sign, until the hand begins to ache. And then perhaps the student thinks of someone, a parent waiting at home, a friend who promised to walk beside them after class, a watcher standing near the doorway, half-shadowed, listening, keeping order without being asked. The student presses 2 wedges, an eye, then a small mark that means near. Watching, near. Even if the student did not intend a sentence, the clay holds the feeling. It is good to be seen, and it is good to be near. The curator sets the practice tablet onto a foam cradle and opens another compartment. Inside is a bundle of thin paper, modern notes written by conservators describing where the fragments were found, what the surface shows under angled light, how many times the clay was smoothed and repressed. They don't read the notes aloud. Instead, they offer you the simplest truth. This small practice piece survived when it had no reason to. It survived because someone did not bother to recycle it. It survived because a shelf collapsed in a way that sealed it from weather. It survived because time sometimes preserves the humble things by accident. And that is the soft twist of the night. The object that was meant to be erased became a witness. If your life has felt ordinary lately, if you have worried that your small routines, your quiet efforts, your uncelebrated kindnesses don't count, let this be a gentle correction from the past. The humble things endure. The unremarkable moments become the texture of history. Even a practice tablet meant to be smoothed away can outlast empires. The curator closes the drawer halfway and rests a hand on the metal edge, as if they can feel the temperature of the story through it. Their voice becomes softer, slower. In myths, they say, people talk about gods and watchers and floods, but in the artifacts you find something simpler. You find hands, you find fingerprints, you find the wavering line of a student learning to control pressure. They invite you to imagine that wavering line as a kind of kindness toward yourself. You don't need perfect sentences tonight. You don't need perfect plans for tomorrow. You only need the next gentle breath, in and out. Press and lift. In and out. The curator returns the practice tablet to the drawer and slides it fully closed. The click is quiet, but it lands inside you like a small anchor. The day can be placed away, the mind can be allowed to loosen. As you walk back along the corridor, the museum feels even more like a sleeping city. Row after row of drawers hold objects that are not performing. They are resting. They do not demand your attention with drama. They simply exist, patient and contained. The curator speaks again, and their words drift like warm steam. They say that ancient people understood something we often forget. Not everything needs to be permanent to be meaningful. Some tablets were fired to last, yes, but many were made to be temporary, records for a season, lessons for a day, exercises for a hand. The world could function because people allowed some things to pass. What would it be like, the curator asks gently, to let your thoughts be temporary tonight? You don't have to answer. You can let the question settle into you the way the museum's cool air settles into your lungs. Perhaps your worries can be practice marks, not permanent carvings. Perhaps your mind can smooth them away or simply leave them unfinished, trusting that morning will bring a softer hand. You reach a small bench in the corridor, and the curator invites you to sit, if only in imagination. The bench is simple, cushioned, and the light above it is dim enough to feel like dusk. From here, the hallway stretches in both directions, quiet, orderly, endless. The curator tells you that the oldest stories about watchers are, at their core, stories about closeness, about what happens when someone stands near long enough to care. But the practice tablet adds a different, gentler angle. The watched are not only burdens in a system, they are learners. They are fragile hands trying to master a sign. They are people who want to do well, to belong, to be guided kindly. And in that angle, the night softens further. If you have been hard on the world or hard on yourself, let this corridor cool your judgment. Let the practice tablet remind you that learning is allowed to be messy, that care is allowed to be quiet, and that rest is allowed to arrive before everything is solved. Here, no one rests alone. Every story from the past is a soft lantern in the dark, gently lighting our way tonight. The curator stands and you stand with them, slowly. There is one more piece, they say. Not a grand tablet, not a myth, a small record that sounds like a lullaby, an inventory, a list, a simple line of daily life, and yet it holds a secret, about time. As you wait, you can almost picture the kind of line it might contain, not prophecy, but provision. Barley measured into baskets, dates counted into jars, lamp oil portioned for the night, a note about reeds delivered or wool received or bread shared at a doorway. The ordinary arithmetic of keeping a household calm. The curator says that lists were not only for accountants, lists were for peace. When you write down what you have, you stop fearing you have nothing. When you mark what's finished, your mind stops circling it. Even the ancient scribe knew this comfort. One wedge for one measure, a quiet tally that makes the world feel manageable. If today left you with a mental to-do list, imagine placing it on a clay tablet and sliding it into a drawer. Let it rest there. Let the night be listless in the sweetest way, safe. They lead you toward another cabinet. The drawer handle gleams faintly. Their glove hovers, then pulls. Metal slides, foam appears. And in that pale cradle, a narrow tablet rests like a thin moon. The curator tilts it into the light, and the wedges shine softly as if the clay itself is about to whisper. In the pale foam cradle, the tablet is narrow and long, like a thin slice of night. It doesn't look like a myth. It doesn't look like a prophecy. It looks practical, quiet, almost shy, an object that never expected to be admired. The curator lifts it with both hands and holds it at an angle beneath the lamp. The wedges catch light, and for a moment they resemble tiny footprints on soft ground. The marks move in straight lines, then pause, then begin again. A list, you can tell, even without reading it. A measured pattern, a steady accounting. The curator's voice stays low, as if they are speaking to your nervous system as much as to your mind. This one, they say, is an ordinary tablet. They explain that in these ancient cities, lists were everywhere. Grain recorded as it entered the storehouse, oil portioned for lamps, wool counted for weaving, bread measured for workers. The list was a tool of calm. It made the day feel held. It made the future feel less frightening. It turned the invisible, hunger, need, planning, into something visible and therefore manageable. If you've ever made a list at night just to quiet your thoughts, you already understand the spirit of this clay, not a demand, a release, a way of saying the mind can stop carrying everything in its arms. Can you hear it? Is silence in archives a kind of sound in itself? Here, the silence contains a second sound softer than breath, the sound of order. Not rigid order, kind order, the kind that keeps the lamps lit and the doors steady. The curator turns the tablet slightly, and then very gently they begin to translate. Not every line, not every detail, only enough to let the rhythm of it reach you. Barley, they say, and pause. Oil, they say, and pause. Dates, they say, and pause. Each word is spoken as if it belongs to a lullaby. Each pause is long enough for your eyelids to soften. They tell you that the tablet comes from a storeroom record, a simple tally of rations, nothing heroic, nothing dramatic. Yet it holds a secret about time. Time, for most people, is made of provisions. Time is measured in bowls and jars, in enough to last the night, in enough to reach the next morning. The curator lets you imagine the storeroom itself. A cool, dim place with thick walls, baskets stacked, jars sealed with clay stoppers, the faint, sweet smell of dates, the dusty warmth of grain, a lamp burning low in a corner, its flames steady in still air. A scribe sits on a low stool, knees drawn close, clay tablet resting on the thigh. Their reed stylus is worn smooth from use. Their wrist moves with practiced economy. Press, lift, press again. The list grows like a quiet path. Outside the storeroom, the city is winding down. Footsteps soften, voices lower. A child is carried inside. A door is latched. And somewhere, at the edge of the canal, a night watchman takes their place. Not a mythic watcher, not a divine overseer, but an ordinary human whose job is to stay awake so others can sleep. The curator points to a small cluster of signs near the middle of the tablet. Their finger hovers above the clay. This line, they whisper, is for the one who watches at night. A small portion of barley, a measure of oil, enough to keep a lamp burning, enough to keep a body warm while the city rests. Suddenly the myth and the artifact touch each other, softly. The watchers of the stories become the watchmen of the streets. The idea of oversight becomes something human and tender, someone standing in the dark so that others can let go. If you are listening tonight from a busy life, work emails, family needs, endless notifications, let this line be a kindness to you. Somewhere in the world, someone is watching so you can rest. A bridge engineer, a nurse, a security guard, a parent awake with a baby. And if you have been that person, the one who watches, then this tablet sees you too. Here, no one rests alone. Every story from the past is a soft lantern in the dark, gently lighting our way tonight. The curator continues the translation, still in that slow, steady cadence. A portion for the apprentice, a portion for the mason, a portion for the woman who grinds grain. The list is not just inventory, it is a map of a community. Each line is a person whose day was made of simple efforts, lifting, mixing, shaping, carrying. The tablet does not praise them, but it remembers them. It says, you were counted, which means you mattered enough to be provided for. The curator pauses again, and in the pause, you feel how soothing it is to be included in a system that provides. So much of modern life feels like a system that consumes. But this clay, pressed in a quiet room long ago, holds the opposite energy: provision, maintenance, continuity. They tell you that rations were often measured carefully because stability depended on it. Too little, and people weaken. Too much, and the storeroom empties before the season ends. The scribe's calm marks are a form of balancing, an ancient version of what you might call pacing yourself. And that is the secret the curator wants you to carry gently into sleep. Pacing is not laziness. Pacing is wisdom. Even the city between rivers survived by moving at a steady rhythm, not a sprint. The curator invites you to look at the lower corner of the tablet, where the clay is slightly smudged, a thumbprint, faint but present, like a quiet signature. The scribe pressed the tablet steady. The scribe breathed. The scribe continued. Time passed, and the thumbprint stayed. You imagine that scribe as a person you might recognize, someone who knows their work matters but who doesn't make a show of it, someone who is tired but consistent, but someone who keeps the world running with small marks. Outside the storeroom, night deepens. The canal reflects a thin moon. Reeds whisper, and the night watchman shifts their weight, listening for anything unusual, trusting the city's sleeping breath. The curator leans closer and reads one more line, softer than the others. Not because it is scandalous, but because it is unexpectedly kind. A portion for the old one, they say. Just that. A line that suggests care for someone who can no longer work as hard as before. A line that says, the community remembers you, even when your hands are slower. If you are over 35, as many listeners are, you may feel something tender here. Not fear of aging, but recognition. The sense that life is a long corridor, and each season changes how much we can carry. The tablet doesn't judge the old one. It simply includes them. It provides. The curator lets the words settle. They do not turn it into a lecture. They simply offer the feeling. Even in ancient cities, people knew that peace requires kindness. Peace requires provision not only for the strong, but for the weary. Your own body may sigh at this, quietly. Perhaps you didn't know you needed to hear it. Perhaps you have been treating yourself like a worker who must always produce. Tonight, the tablet suggests another approach. You can be provided for too. You can be held. The curator asks, very softly, if this story brought you calm, leave a gentle comment for yourself. Then, with a small, warm smile, they add, not because the algorithm needs it, because you deserve to be witnessed kindly. They set the tablet back into its foam cradle and slide the drawer closed. The metal sound is small and firm, like a clasp on a jewelry box. Another quiet ending there. As you walk away, the corridor seems even calmer. The museum feels like a sleeping organism, drawers as ribs, cabinets as lungs, light as breath. The curator speaks one more reflection, the kind that lands best when you're already drifting. People often imagine the ancient world as harsh, they say, and it could be, but it was also full of small structures of care, lists of rations, lamps tended at night, walls repaired, lessons repeated, a reed wall that listens. They pause beside a door that leads back toward the main halls, toward the larger world, but they do not take you there yet. Instead, they turn and lead you to a smaller alcove, an in-between space, almost like a chapel for quiet. On a narrow shelf sits a single clay fragment, no bigger than a matchbox. The curator doesn't even pick it up. They only point to the faint marks on it, a few wedges, a partial sign, the beginning of something. This, they whisper, is what most stories really are, not complete, not perfect, just beginnings held gently. And then, because the night is kind, they offer you a breath cue without making it feel like instruction. Their voice is soft, and the words are slow. Inhale as if you are filling a lamp with oil. Exhale as if you are turning the wick down. Inhale as if you are being provided for. Exhale as if you are letting the day go. In the quiet, you feel the truth under everything. The purpose of history is not only to teach facts, it is to remind you that humans have always sought steadiness, that someone long ago wanted the night watchman to have enough oil, that someone wanted the old one to have enough barley, that someone pressed wedges into clay so the community could keep breathing in rhythm. The curator looks at you and their eyes are gentle. Next, they say, we'll return to the mythic thread one last time, not to frighten but to soften it. Because the most beautiful twist is this: the great reset in the stories can also be read as a longing for quiet, a longing you're allowed to answer tonight. They guide you back toward the vault, and the corridor feels like water, cool, smooth, carrying you. The curator's footsteps are barely audible as you move again through the museum's sleeping corridors. Somewhere behind a door, a motion sensor keeps a small light awake, but even that light seems polite. You pass cabinets that hold centuries the way a shoreline holds shells. You pass labels, drawers, silent rows, and with each step, the day you lived before this story grows more distant, softer at the edges, like a city seen through late-night rain on a windshield. The curator stops at a blank wall where the air feels slightly cooler, and they speak as if speaking to a lake. We've touched the artifacts, they whisper. Now let's touch the feeling that sits underneath the myth. They don't say it like a warning. They say it like an invitation to loosen your grip. They guide you to a small listening bench, just a narrow seat tucked into an alcove, away from the main aisles of the vault. The bench is padded, the light above it is low, the quiet here is thick, almost velvety. If you're in bed, allow that same velvet quiet to gather around you. Let your hands rest where they naturally want to rest. Let your feet feel heavy. Let your breathing become the simplest thing you do. In the alcove, the curator opens a folder. Inside is a photograph, an archaeological scene, not sharp, not dramatic, just a pale landscape and a line of reeds, a canal, a low horizon. Under the image, a few notes in calm handwriting, and a date that means little by itself because the true date is always long ago. The curator taps the photograph once, gently. Eridu, they say. Sipar, the land where water was both mercy and responsibility. And just like that, the overlap begins again. The museum bench becomes a riverbank. The padded seat becomes packed earth, cool beneath you. The low light becomes moonlight. The air becomes damp and kind. You can almost smell wet clay and reed pollen, the faint sweetness of river plants settling for the night. A soft wind moves through the marsh. Reeds lean and return, like a slow bow. Can you hear it? Is silence in archives a kind of sound in itself? Out here, silence has the sound of distance, a far-off frog, a single splash where a fish turns, the faint hush of insects. And underneath it all, a wide, patient stillness, as if the world has agreed not to hurry. The curator walks beside you in this older landscape. Their voice remains warm, steady, and low. In the stories, they say, the world becomes too loud, too busy, too full. They don't describe crowds or chaos in harsh images. They describe it the way you might describe your own life when it has simply had too much, too many messages, too many tasks, too many tabs open in the mind, a constant hum that makes it hard to hear your own breath. In the myth, the higher powers hear the hum and call it noise. The watchers, closer to the ground, hear the same hum and call it life. And between those two interpretations, the system begins to strain, not with explosions, with fatigue. The curator kneels by the canal and draws a small circle in the mud with a fingertip. The circle fills with water. Sometimes, they say, a reset is just the world asking to quiet down. The sky is clouding over now, slowly, as if someone is pulling a thin grey veil across the stars. The moon becomes softer. The air cools another degree. A scent rises from the riverbank, earth remembering water. Then the rain begins. At first, it is only a few drops widely spaced. Each drop lands with a tiny, clean tap, a drop on leaf, a drop on reed, a drop on water, making one small ring that expands and dissolves. The curator does not dramatize it. They let the rain be what rain is, repetition, steadying, gentle insistence. More drops arrive. The rings multiply. The canal's surface turns into a quiet pattern of circles, as if the water is practicing the same sign again and again, learning to write calm in the only language it needs. If your thoughts are still moving, let the rain's pattern give them something to follow, not to solve, just to drift with. Ring, then still. Ring, then still. The curator leads you toward a large, simple shape on the bank, a boat, newly built. It is not elegant, it is practical. Planks, reeds, resin sealing the seams. The smell of wood and pitch is warm and reassuring, like a workshop at night. In the story, the boat is a response to a whisper, a rule bent without being broken, a way to carry life without turning the night into a battle. You step closer. The boat's interior is spacious enough to feel like a room. Inside are baskets, bundles, jars, provisions arranged with care, not panic-stacked, but placed as if someone wanted the journey to remain calm. A lamp hangs near the center, protected from wind. Its flame is small and steady. The light makes the wood glow honey brown. Shadows sway gently with the boat's movement, and the movement is already beginning. A small, soothing rock, like breathing. The rain strengthens, the river rises in a patient way. Water begins to lap against the hull. The boat shifts, then steadies, then shifts again, as if testing its own balance. The curator speaks softly over the rain. Imagine, they say, that the flood is not a punishment. Imagine it as the world turning down the volume. You climb into the boat, the wood is cool under your feet, but not cold. The air inside is warmer, sheltered from wind. The sound of rain becomes more uniform here, a steady blanket of sound. The boat begins to lift. The shore releases you without struggle. The hull floats free, and the river carries you with gentle authority. This is where the myth becomes a lullaby. The boat rocks, the lamp steadies, rain taps the roof, the water carries you forward, not quickly, not dramatically, but with the quiet certainty of gravity. If you've ever been rocked by a train at night or by a car on a long highway, you know this kind of motion. It doesn't excite the mind, it softens it. It teaches the body that it can let go. The curator sits opposite you, and for a while they say nothing. They simply let the rocking do its work. Here, no one rests alone. Every story from the past is a soft lantern in the dark, gently lighting our way tonight. Outside, the landscape becomes blurred. Reeds disappear into grey. The city lights of Eridu fade to a few soft embers, then to none. The world is reduced to three gentle elements: rain, water, and the warm pocket of light inside the boat. The curator finally speaks again. You cannot watch without caring, they say, and you cannot care without needing rest. They pause, letting the sentence float. Then they add, even more softly, even the world needs rest. The boat continues to rock. Your breath begins to match it. In and out, in and out. The rain's steady sound makes it easier to keep that rhythm. The curator invites you to imagine the watchers in this moment, not as villains, not as rebels, but as tired intermediaries. They have watched long enough to love. They have loved long enough to understand boundaries. And now, as water smooths the world, they step back, letting the system quiet, letting life be carried by something larger than their own vigilance. There is a tenderness in stepping back. Not abandonment, but trust. If tonight's story reminded you of a beautiful memory, feel free to share it below. And if it reminded you of a tiredness you've been carrying, you can share that too in whatever gentle way feels safe. The rain begins to soften, not stopping all at once, just thinning, gradually, like someone turning a dial. The boat drifts through a wide, quiet darkness. The lamp flame still burns, the provisions still rest. The air smells of resin, wet wood, and the faint sweetness of dates. You notice with a small internal relief that the world has not demanded anything from you during this passage. You did not have to steer, you did not have to fight, you only had to be carried. The curator watches you kindly. That, they whisper, is the lesson hidden inside the myth. The flood story told gently is not about terror. It is about containment, about a vessel, about a moving room that keeps breath steady while the outside shifts. In the museum, the drawers are vessels too, foam cradles, boxes, shelves, quiet rooms where time can sleep without being harmed by the weather of the world. And in your own life, you have vessels as well. Beds, blankets, routines, small rituals. A cup of tea, a lamp turned low. A playlist that repeats like rain. The boat continues to rock. Slower now, the rain becomes a fine mist. The sky begins to lighten, barely, at the far edge, just a hint of grey easing toward pearl. The curator's voice becomes a whisper inside a whisper. When the volume comes down, they say, you can finally hear what you needed all along. Not an answer, not a solution, just your own breathing, your own heartbeat. The simple proof that you are here and you are safe enough to rest. The boat drifts onward and the scene begins to fade, as if the water itself is becoming a soft curtain. The museum returns, the listening bench returns, the cool air returns, but the rocking stays in your body like a memory of motion. The curator closes the folder, the photograph disappears into paper again. "Next," they whisper, "we'll return to the vault for our final closing ritual. The way drawers close, the way doors settle, the way silence returns, they stand and you stand with them, slowly, gently, already half asleep. You are back in the museum again, and the air feels like cool water held perfectly still. The corridor lights are low and every cabinet seems to keep its own gentle promise. Nothing will rush you here. Nothing will startle you. Everything is arranged so that the mind can loosen its grip. The curator walks beside you without speaking for a little while. Their steps are measured, soft at the heel, as if they've learned to move in a way that respects sleeping things. You pass a row of drawers whose labels look like quiet names on a nighttime street. You pass a small cart with padded supports, a folded cloth, a brush with pale bristles. All of it feels domestic in a strange way, like the museum has its own bedtime routine. If you are listening in bed, let that idea reach you. Bedtime routines exist for objects too. Even clay, even paper, even stone likes to be tucked away. The curator stops at a cabinet and opens a drawer only a few inches. A sliver of foam appears, pale as moonlight. The scent is clean, cotton cardboard, a hint of metal. The curator doesn't lift anything out. They simply let you see the cradle, the careful shape that holds weight without pressure. "Containers?" they whisper, "a kindness?" Then very slowly they slide the drawer back to the box. The drawer returns. The silence returns. The sound is small and sure. It lands inside you the way a soft latch lands, as a signal that something can stop. The day can stop. The mind can stop rehearsing. You walk on, and the curator begins to speak in the calmest possible tone, as if they are telling you about weather that has already passed. They talk about the roles that appear in every civilization, in every family, in every workplace. The ones above who decide, the ones below who do, and the ones between who translate, soften, and keep the flow from breaking its banks. In the myths, those between are watchers and overseers. In the storeroom tablet, they are watchmen and scribes. In the scribal school, they are teachers guiding hands, correcting pressure, returning clay to smoothness with a damp palm. And in your own life, the curator suggests, you may have been between more than you realized. Between your younger self and your older responsibilities. Between other people's expectations and your quiet needs. Between noise and peace. If that is true, let this story be gentle with you. Let it place a warm hand on your shoulder without asking you to stand straighter. The curator pauses at another cabinet and opens a different drawer. Inside is a tablet you recognize in feeling, if not in shape. The narrow list, the one that counted barley and oil and dates like a lullaby. The curator doesn't read it again. They don't need to. The rhythm is already in you. Barley, and pause, oil, and pause, dates, and pause. A portion for the one who watches at night. They close the drawer. Back to the box. The drawer returns. The silence returns. You notice how repetition changes the body. The first time you hear a sound, the mind labels it. The second time, the mind anticipates it. The third time, the body relaxes into it, like rain, like a train at night, like breath. The curator guides you to a door at the end of the aisle. It's a simple door, painted a quiet, neutral color with a small metal handle that catches the low light. The curator rests their glove on the handle, but does not turn it yet. Before we close the night, they say, let's remember something small. They lead you in imagination back to Eridu, only not to the flood, not to the grand arcs. They lead you to a courtyard at dusk. A fire is low and steady, a pot murmurs softly. A woven mat waits near the doorway. Someone laughs once, then settles into quiet. The sky is deepening. The first star appears, faint but honest. A watcher stands nearby, not towering, not threatening, simply present, simply awake. The watcher's job is to observe, but the watcher's heart has learned to care. They see a child rub sleepy eyes. They see a tired worker wash mud from their hands. They see an old one sit slowly and exhale as if letting go of a long day. And in that tender seeing, the watcher learns the most human truth of all. Closeness changes you. The curator's voice returns to the museum. You cannot watch without caring, they whisper, and you cannot care without learning when to step back. They let the sentence stay in the air like warm steam. Then they add another sentence, softer still. And you cannot step back unless you believe the world will hold itself for a while. If you have been the one who holds things together, that last sentence may be the hardest. So the story gives you help. It shows you cabinets, drawers, foam cradles, seals, lists and boats, containers inside containers, evidence that holding can be shared, that the burden does not have to live in one set of hands. The curator turns the handle. The door opens into an even dimmer space, not a new room, but a small vestibule, an in-between chamber where the sound changes. The hum of the vault is muted. The air feels thicker, like a quilt. On the wall hangs a single photograph, reeds at the edge of water taken in soft morning light. Under it is a line of text in neat script, a phrase from an old translation, but the curator doesn't read it in a scholarly way. They read it like a bedtime sentence. Read wall, listen. Then they smile, barely. Isn't it beautiful, they say, that guidance can arrive through something ordinary? A wall, a list, a practice tablet, a fingerprint, ordinary carriers of extraordinary patience. If tonight you feel ordinary, let the museum correct that gently. Ordinary is where the lantern lives. Ordinary is where care happens. Ordinary is how civilization survived long enough to leave us these quiet objects. The curator invites you to take a slow breath, not a forced one. Just a breath that lengthens because nothing is chasing you. In and out. And as you breathe, the curator asks a soft question, not for your mind, but for the part of you that listens in the dark. What if rest is not something you earn, but something you return to? They let the question settle. You don't have to answer. You can simply notice how your body responds, perhaps with a sigh, perhaps with a loosening behind the ribs, perhaps with a small warmth spreading through the hands. Here, no one rests alone. Every story from the past is a soft lantern in the dark, gently lighting our way tonight. The curator steps back into the vault aisle with you. The cabinets are still, the drawers are closed, the lights are low. Everything seems to be waiting to be left alone, as if the museum itself is ready to sleep. They walk you to the cabinet where the first tablet rested, the one that felt cold through gloves, heavier than expected, as if meaning always carries weight. The curator slides the drawer open only a fraction, just enough to show you the foam and the edge of clay. Then, with reverence so gentle it feels like comfort, they slide it shut. Back to the box. The drawer returns. The silence returns. They repeat it once more, slower, like the final line of a lullaby. Back to the box. The drawer returns. The silence returns. In the corridor, the curator turns off one small lamp. The light dims, not suddenly but softly, like eyelids lowering. The vault remains safe, the objects remain held, the stories remain asleep until someone listens again. The curator turns to you. If this story brought you calm, they say, leave a gentle comment for yourself. Only when you're ready, a single word is enough. Soft, safe, home. They pause, then add, with the warmth of a steady community, here, no one rests alone. Before that last closing, the curator performs a small ritual you can almost feel in your own muscles. They check the humidity gauge, just a glance, no fuss. They straighten a cloth at the edge of a cart. They wipe a fingerprint from a glass pane, not because it is dirty, but because clarity is a kind of respect. In the corner, the conservator covers their work with a thin sheet, the way you might cover bread dough to let it rest. Brushes are placed bristle up in a cup. Tools return to a drawer lined with felt. A label is turned face down so it won't catch the light. Small actions done slowly, so the room can stay untroubled. Watching them, you might notice. Closure is rarely one grand motion. Closure is a series of gentle returns. If you like, borrow that ritual for yourself. Imagine your thoughts as small clay tablets, each one holding a line from your day. One says email, another says conversation, another says worry, another says tomorrow. You don't have to break them. You don't have to solve them. Place each into a soft cradle, slide the drawer in, and let the click be enough. Back to the box. The drawer returns. The silence returns. And if a thought tries to follow you, tell it kindly. Not now, not tonight. We can look again when the light is brighter. A final door waits at the end of the corridor. The door that leads out of the vault, back toward the larger world. The curator places a hand on it, but they don't open it yet. One more part, they whisper, and we'll let the night close completely. They stand very still. The museum is very still. Your breath is very still. And somewhere far away, like a river you no longer have to cross, the day you lived before this story keeps moving on without you. Let your eyelids fall and let the quiet keep you. Tonight, you are allowed to stop. The curator's hand remains on the final door, and for a moment, nothing happens. In the museum's dim corridor, stillness feels like a living thing, calm, watchful, kind. The cabinets behind you hold their sleeping worlds. The lights above you glow low and steady. Even your own thoughts seem to have learned to speak more softly. If you are listening with your eyes already heavy, let them be heavy. Let your face relax, as if warm water is washing over it. Let the room you're in, your real room, your bed, your blanket, become the boat tonight. You do not have to sail it. You only have to be held inside it. The curator turns slightly, not toward the door, but toward you. Their voice is almost a whisper now, as if they're speaking directly to the quiet place under your ribs. Stories like this, they say, are not meant to keep you awake. They smile barely. They are meant to be lanterns, small ones, soft ones, lanterns that don't blind you, just enough light to feel your way back to rest. You might remember, faintly, the cold clay through gloves, the way the wedges caught light like tiny shadows, the reed wall that listened, the practice tablet that survived by accident, the ration list that counted barley and oil like a lullaby, the repaired seam that let meaning cross a break. And if any of those images feel too clear, too awake, let them blur, gently. Imagine each one sliding back into its foam cradle. Imagine the drawer closing, not fast, not forceful, but with that soft, certain click. Back to the box. The drawer returns. The silence returns. The curator walks you a few steps down the corridor. A small lamp near the floor casts a warm oval of light. The light makes the tiles look smooth, almost like stone beside a river. In the distance, Somewhere deeper in the building, you hear nothing at all, no voices, no footsteps, only the faint breath of air moving through vents designed to protect fragile things. Can you hear it? Is silence in archives a kind of sound in itself? Tonight, that sound is like a blanket being unfolded. It has weight, but it is a gentle weight. It presses you down into safety. It tells your nervous system without words that the night is not asking you to perform. The curator pauses beside one cabinet, one last cabinet, and opens a drawer a single inch. Not to show you anything new, but to repeat the ritual once more. A sliver of pale foam appears. A corner of clay, barely visible, rests in its nest like a sleeping bird. They close the drawer again, slowly. Back to the box. The drawer returns. The silence returns. Somewhere in your body, a muscle unclenches. Maybe it's in the stomach. Maybe it's behind the eyes. Maybe it's the small muscles in your hands that have been holding on all day without you noticing. The curator speaks again, softer than before. In the myths, they say, people talk about watchers. But the gentlest watcher is often the one you can't see. They don't mean anything mystical. They mean the quiet structures that keep you safe. The locked door, the dim lamp, the routine of brushing teeth, the blanket pulled up to the chest, the simple decision to stop scrolling and let the mind settle. These are modern reed walls, listening without judgment. These are the small boats we build to float through busy seasons. You walk together toward the threshold of the vault. The final door is here now, close, simple, ready. The curator rests their palm against it and holds there, as if giving the night one more chance to exhale. Sometimes, they whisper, the world feels like it's asking too much. They let that sentence stand, then add, and sometimes the kindest answer is not to push back, but to step back. In Eridu, the Watchers learned that closeness creates care, and care creates weight. In Sippa, the scribe learned that a list can calm the mind by placing burden onto clay. In the museum, the conservator learned that a seam can be mended without pretending it never broke. And you tonight can learn the simplest version. You are allowed to stop being the one who watches. If a worry tries to rise, let it rise like a small bubble in water. You do not have to chase it. You do not have to pop it. Let it drift to the surface, touch the air, and dissolve. If a memory appears, let it be a lantern too, soft, not sharp. If it is a good memory, let it warm you. If it is a heavy memory, let it rest in the distance, like a city light seen from far away, not near enough to pull you out of bed. The curator turns the handle. The door opens and the sound is almost nothing, just a hush of air changing rooms. Beyond it is a darker hallway leading toward the museum's main exits. But the curator doesn't take you there. Instead, they stand in the doorway and look back at the vault one last time, as if saying goodnight to every drawer. They speak a closing line the way one might tuck in a child, a book, or a day. Sleep, they whisper. It's a kind of archive too. You feel the meaning of it in your bones. Sleep is where the mind stores what it can't process yet. Sleep is where emotions settle like silt in a river. Sleep is where the body repairs its seams. Sleep is where the noise of the day is turned down until you can hear your own heartbeat again. The curator steps aside so you can pass. As you move, the vault seems to dim further behind you. The cabinets remain, the tablets remain, the stories remain. Nothing is lost. Everything is simply resting. Back to the box. The drawer returns. The silence returns. The curator turns off one last lamp inside the vault. The light fades like eyelids closing. Then, with the same calm reverence they used for clay, they close the vault door. Click. a small, sure sound, a gentle end. And now, you are in the hallway outside the vault, where the museum feels even quieter. The curator walks with you toward the building's sleeping heart, toward the place where the world outside can no longer reach you. They stop beneath a dim sign and turn to you. Their voice becomes a little warmer, still quiet, but human, as if speaking to a friend across a late-night kitchen table. "Here," they say, "no one rests alone. Every story from the past is a soft lantern in the dark, gently lighting our way tonight. If tonight's journey brought you calm, you can leave a gentle comment for yourself, only when you're ready. One word is enough. Safe, soft, home. A small note, like a thumbprint in clay saying, I was here, and I let myself rest." And don't forget to subscribe for more peaceful nighttime journeys. If your day was crowded, meetings stacked like tiles, notifications blinking like restless stars, let this hallway be the gentle opposite. Here, there is no inbox, no calendar, no need to reply, only the quiet certainty that you have done enough for one day. Picture, for a moment, the place where you are listening from tonight. Maybe it's a bedroom with a small lamp turned low. Maybe it's a couch after everyone else has gone to sleep. Maybe it's a hotel room in a work city where the air conditioner hums like distant rain. Maybe it's a parked car, windows fogging softly, the world outside muted. Wherever it is, let it be your vessel. Let the mattress or cushion support you the way foam supports clay, fitting your shape, taking your weight without complaint. Let the blanket be your reed wall, keeping the draft out. Let the dim light be your little lamp of oil, turned down to a steady ember. And if you've been carrying the role of the one who keeps things steady, you can set it down now. You can imagine placing that role on a shelf beside the other artifacts of the day. Not throwing it away, just returning it to its place. Return the work voice. Return the worried voice. Return the planning voice. Back to the box. The drawer returns. The silence returns. Notice your feet first. The way they rest, heavy and quiet. Notice your calves, your knees, your thighs. Nothing to change, only to feel. Notice your hips settling. Notice your belly rising and falling in a natural, patient way. Notice your chest, the small lift of breath, the soft release. Notice your shoulders loosening like knots undone in warm water. Notice your hands, fingers uncurling, palms resting open. If a thought insists on staying, you can treat it kindly. Like a museum label, a small note that can be read later. "Ah," you can say, gently, "that's tomorrow." Then slide it back into its drawer. And if a tender feeling arrives, loneliness or nostalgia, or that quiet ache that sometimes visits after midnight, let it sit beside you like a lantern, not a storm. Here, in this community of night listeners, that feeling is understood. Someone else, somewhere else, is hearing these same slow sentences and exhaling at the same pauses for you tonight. Wherever you are listening from, imagine this quiet corner of the night holding you the way the museum holds its tablets, supported, contained, unhurried. The day can wait outside the door. Tomorrow can wait in its own drawer. For now, let your breathing become the only narrative. In and out, in and out. If it helps, imagine the river again, dark, patient, steady. Imagine the reed wall, listening without judgment. Imagine the boat, rocking softly as rain turns into mist. Imagine the list, counting provisions in slow pauses. Imagine the seam, mended, meaning continuing across it. And then let even those images fade one by one, like lanterns being lowered. Back to the box, the drawer returns. the silence returns.
Our story pauses here. Every visual and word you've experienced was assisted by AI, yet guided and perfected by sincere human emotion. We hope this harmony of history and technology has crafted a beautiful dream for you tonight. Let go and drift deep into sleep. Good night.